Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron. It's episode 22, and we're only going to do one podcast this week because this past weekend for UK versus South Carolina, it wasn't great, and probably this weekend for UK versus Georgia won't be great for the Kentucky Wildcats, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been very disappointing this season so far for Kentucky football, and hopefully they can improve, and hopefully they can actually win an SEC game like they did last year with Mark Stoops and everything, but we'll see.
Yeah, no doubt. It's weird because at this point of the year, I did think we would be the same record, but it
Hmm.
was a completely different world that I thought we would be in. Where I thought, because I had us preseason 7-5, but I know I'm a sunshine pumper, so I knew that was a little optimistic. But I did think we'd have these two losses, Ole Miss and South Carolina. But I thought both of those teams would be well. Ole Miss has lived up to what I expected, but like I thought South Carolina would be better. I thought these would be very reasonable losses. I didn't think we'd be getting blown out by a South Carolina team that hasn't been great, but
Yeah.
the vibes are down for sure across the fan base, and yeah, we got a tough one this weekend. That's the world of the SEC though.
Yeah.
You get punched in the mouth, and you got another one coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and then of course next year you move to the nine-game SEC schedule. But yeah, Kentucky they fell to South Carolina 35-13 this past weekend, and it was a painful showing. Basically, UK lost the game as soon as Cutter Boley, of course, just got sacked, and then it was a strip, and it was a scoop and score. South Carolina's of course scored on that, and then the very next possession, we ran the ball for the very first play, and then after that, Cutter Boley threw a pass. It was a pick six, and basically the game was over after that. UK stood no chance, and we started off great. We started off 7-0. Seth McGowan scored that touchdown, and I'm like, wow, we might really have a chance to win this game because we're up 7-0 to start. But it was the same thing against UK versus Ole Miss. The only difference is that game was at home for UK compared to South Carolina.
Yeah, like you said, not a bad start overall, but then uh yeah, the back-breaking turnovers where they both result in a touchdown. It's just kind of like you said, it was over at that point. And it is interesting though. The thing that's happened, what was the number? It was like the last like five matchups with them, like the winning team hasn't scored or more than 21 offensive points or something.
24. I think it was
24. So yeah, it's still under that. It's crazy. Like which I mean they obviously get to 35, but that's with a couple of defensive ones. But yeah, it was just tough, man. It was obviously Seth started out good, and
20.
um, kind of from then on, it was downhill for everything.
Yeah, I still can't believe though after that touchdown that Seth McGowan got, of course he was trying to either spike the ball or throw the ball into the bushes, but then of course he hit LaNorris, Seller's grandfather, and that was awful. Of course, I know people were talking about that. People were saying he should be suspended, for the game against Georgia and everything. And I just saw so many people talking about that. And of course, afterwards, Seth McGowan apologized during the media press conference, and of course also online. So I'm glad he actually apologized for his actions, but I just found that so crazy whenever that happened to begin the game.
Yeah, no doubt. He definitely didn't do it on purpose, but obviously he definitely needs to apologize. I did see that they got his grandpa the game ball though, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, I think he was definitely trying to throw it in the bushes, and the adrenaline. You're running at a touchdown to take a lead early in an SEC road game. Like you're gonna have a little something crazy go through you, but like you gotta, yeah, you gotta hit the bushes if you're gonna try to throw it to the bushes or something. Like you can't just be hitting grandpas. We gotta go forward, not hitting any more grandpas, and I think we'll be
Yeah.
okay with the Sellies. But yeah, it was not a great look for the Cats because that was kind of one of those things where not a whole lot of people in the country really knew we were even playing a game at 7:30 or 7:45
Mhm.
because of what the other games were.
Yeah.
But that's why people found out that we were playing was because we hit LaNorris Sellers' grandpa, and that one kind of made waves around online.
Yeah, and that was awful. And I thought UK immediately lost the game once, we won the coin toss and Mark Stoops was like, you know what, we're going to receive the ball to start out. And of course, it worked out to begin the game, but after that, it wasn't just downhill for the offense. UK turned the ball over three times, two interceptions, one fumble, of course, with three of those turnovers. Two of them were touchdowns for South Carolina, and it was just awful.
Yeah, it was like you said, it ended up paying off that we scored right away, but that was about it. That was like, which that's always. I don't really know how to read those because those are obviously when you get the ball first, like those are scripted drives. The game really starts when the non-scripted drives when you
Mhm.
can score a touchdown on those, and we just never did. So I don't know. Um, I don't know if there's communication issues still. I don't know what the problem is, but this offense is just struggling big time.
Yeah, and speaking of UK's offense, right now they finished against South Carolina 3 of 13 on third downs and 1 of 4 in the red zone. And you have to score whenever you get into the red zone, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal. You can't, go 1 for 4 against South Carolina because you're just giving up points at that point.
Yeah, yeah, you can't do that in any game really, but especially SEC games, especially SEC road games where it's a team like South Carolina where they're going to figure out how to put up points. The defense is flying around and their offense can do it. So yeah, you're going to have to capitalize when you get in the red zone because it's feeling a little bit like the red zone the Rich Scangarello days where it was like we'd just get there, flame out. Like you just can't have that. Can't have that going on.
Well, for Richard Scangarello's offense, it was just basically, halfback flip screens or wide receiver screens, and that is also what annoyed me about the offense. I mean, I remember being at the Mississippi State game, and basically the defender knew what they were doing because they ran it like 2 plays previously before, and then like the third play they did it again, and then the Mississippi State defender just picked it off. Luckily, UK won that game, but I was so upset. I'm like, that defender just read clearly what we were about to do.
Yeah, I think that was a Emmanuel Forbes, the DB there. Yeah, it was just like we've done the same thing a billion times. So yeah, obviously, yeah, that was the rich days, and don't miss those. But
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't left that too far. I mean, the offense has been struggling for sure so far.
I really think Bush Hamdan could be worse than Rich, honestly.
There's a chance. There is a chance. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, just like. But I don't know what else you could say anymore because I got last year. Obviously, you could just be like, well, he didn't really get to recruit all the guys, and like maybe just throw them bone. But like this year, I mean, you have a good O line. Like
Yeah.
obviously, they got a few sacks against us this past week, but like that's one of the some of the best edge rushers in America. Like the line is good. Like you've got to be able to do something with that. And the tight ends are obviously really good. And maybe the receivers aren't the best, but they still got to do something.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Bush Hampton's offense, and of course, you were bringing up sacks. Cutter Boley got sacked 6 times versus South Carolina, and that should never happen at all. And I honestly thought Cutter was going to get yanked after he threw that first interception. I thought after that happened, I was like, you know what, Zach Calzada is going to come into play, or potentially Bo Allen, who hasn't played at all this year for Kentucky. So that didn't happen. I know. I saw that they were warming up on the sidelines, but of course that didn't happen. And, it just stinks because a quarterback should never get hit 6 times unless, of course, you're like Joe Burrow with the Bengals. Then it's completely a different situation. You're supposed to get hit like 10 times, sacked 10 times, no problem.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Like even like the elite teams, like I'm not going to say necessarily Auburn is elite, but they have a great defense, all that. They play Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, and those sacks were the complete difference in the game. Auburn wins that game if they just don't have Jackson Arnold get sacked so much. You just can't, like you said, 6 times, that can't happen. There's just no world where you're going to even be in games when you're getting sacked 6 times. And like this, like you said, that it can't happen. This is a good O line that like I just don't understand. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
Wolford with or if it's Cutter holding on to it too long sometimes. Like, but I mean, some of those sacks were just Dylan Stewart being a freak. But you've got to be able to prep for that. Double team him, whatever you got to do to slow them down.
Yeah, I really don't think it's Cutter holding the ball too long. I do think sometimes he stays in the pocket too long, and that's why I wish, UK can get, in the future a quarterback that's a dual threat that can both pass and run, like a LaNorris and Sellers, for example, But I just don't think UK or overall, I really don't think you have right now a pocket presence quarterback. Like they have to be able to get out of the pocket and run and everything. That's my opinion. And of course, Cutter Boley honestly reminded me of Zach Calzada from the previous 2 games whenever Calzada played against Toledo and Ole Miss because for Cutter Boley, he only went 18 of 34 with 2 interceptions and 52% completion rate. And that is basically what Calzada was doing, of course, minus the interceptions. He wasn't scoring any touchdowns, but he had about 50% completion rate.
Yeah, no doubt. He definitely didn't have the best game by any means. But obviously the difference is like Cutter's ceiling is untapped. He's got a lot of room to grow, and Calzada kind of is what he is. So um, I am excited to see what Cutter can do. Like he's gonna have to bounce back. Like obviously it's the SEC. It's what you commit to play at Kentucky for is these matchups that you're gonna have. But uh, yeah, it's been ugly quarterback wise this year. Like and obviously he's only a redshirt freshman, so he's not really had a ton of experience in these games. Like he gets thrown into Texas last year. That's one of those where it's like
He was,
whatever.
yeah.
That that one doesn't even really count. What'd you say? Whatever, because like some guys are either going to perform really good or really bad, and that doesn't necessarily shape out what they'll actually end up being. But now he's on the road, and Williams Bryce, one of the most intimidating environments in the country, and you're getting thrown up against elite edge rushers and a team that frankly just has your number recently. So it was
Yeah.
just kind of a death wish scenario. Like it just there wasn't a whole lot of hope going into it for Cutter, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
hopefully this week, Georgia's been a team. I know we'll talk about it. Like Georgia's been a team that has proven to be able to be passed on. Hopefully that ends up being the case. They've obviously got NFL guys in the trenches, and they'll be able to get after us a little bit. But hopefully he can sit back there and deal a little bit because Georgia's DBs, they're not bad, but they're not up to what they've been out of recent years. So hopefully he's able to bounce back and throw a little bit and sling it and deal against Georgia.
Yeah, hopefully he can do that. Of course, Georgia, they have a new quarterback this year with Gunnar Stockton, but he has previously played for Georgia, and we'll talk more about, Stockton and, of course, Georgia's team overall, but we'll continue to talk about Cutter Boley a little bit more. Then we can talk about how great Bush Hamdan's offense has been throughout the 2 years he's been here, for sure. But,
Yeah, it's been a blast.
oh yeah, it's such a blast. But Mark Stoops did say in his press conference that Cutter Boley is not a fragile young man and that he will grow through this. And basically, you could compare, of course, there's a little bit of a difference. Ole Miss, Austin Simmons, it was his first career true road star. Of course, he's been benched since that game, basically, after he got injured. But, I mean, he threw 2 interceptions early on. Ole Miss still came back and won, but Cutter Boley did the same thing, and he threw 2 interceptions. Of course, UK didn't win. But, I mean, they're pretty similar in what's going on right now. They're both really young, and you just have to see what Boley can do in the future.
Yeah, the difference is Ole Miss is sure as heck not ready to get Austin Simmons back from injury. They're not rushing that by any means because they've
Yeah.
got Trinidad Chambliss that's ended up being Heisman contending quarterback. Like he's looked incredible since then. Every game he's started, he's had over 300 all-purpose. So he's been amazing. So they're not necessarily in any
Yeah.
rush. We don't have that luxury where we went and got a D2 Ferris State transfer champion, and then it ends up being one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. But yeah, and that's what Cutter's gonna have to do.
Yeah, why can't UK have like that luck? Like instead of getting Zach Calzada, get Ole Miss backup quarterback who is now starting.
Yeah, yeah. If you can get just Trinidad Chambliss, like yeah, when we get him, when you land that guy, the fan base probably isn't like, oh my gosh, dude, we're winning the SEC or anything, but like he's ended up being much better than Calzada was.
Hey, some people were saying that Zach Calzada would be the next Cam Ward coming from the Incarnate Word.
Boy, they were a little off, just a little.
So, I never said this in the group chat, but I remember this was probably during the Ole Miss or after the Ole Miss game. But I get trolled a lot from my college friends that I went to school with, and somebody said, "I guarantee Chris said that Zach Calzada came from Incarnate Word, and he's going to be the #1 overall draft pick like Cam Ward was." I'm like, I never said that.
No, yeah, I don't. I don't think anybody was actually saying that, but there were some people that were definitely like, you know what, he came from Incarnate Word, so did Cam Ward. Like, there was this
Yeah.
full thing, but yeah, that definitely a different path. We'll just
Yeah.
put it that way.
Definitely a different path for sure. And of course, Calzado's a seventh year senior, so that's great for him. But now let's talk about Bush Hamden's offense. So now in 11 straight power conference games, Kentucky has not scored more than two offensive touchdowns. And that's an insane stat. Like, you've never seen that before coming from an SEC school. Like, can you name one SEC school that has not scored more than two offensive touchdowns during a game? It's insane. I don't even know if that's even possible.
No, yeah, we're probably record. I don't know if anybody's actually keeping that, but that's crazy, especially in 2025 and 2024, where like offense is the thing now, and like defenses are the ones that are kind of handcuffed by the refs and the way the games are called. So like you should be able to score against anybody. Obviously, you're not going to put up crazy numbers against Georgias and Alabamas and all that, but like it's insane to not like 11 straight power conference games. Like that's unbelievable,
Yeah,
crazy stat.
it is a crazy stat. And of course, right now, Kentucky is only averaging 16.4 points per game in those type of contests with power conference games. And that's another crazy stat. Like, there's no way UK should only be scoring 16.4 points per game. Like, they need to be scoring close to 30 if they want to win games.
Yeah, no doubt. Like going into the Ole Miss game where we didn't even know that it was going to be like a fluid offense that it's ended up being, but we were everybody was just like, you got to score 28. That's going to be the number,
Yeah.
and it was right there. Like you said, you got to score around 30. 30 is definitely the target number. If you can score 30, you're gonna be all right. And if you're Bush Hamdan, you definitely have enough weapons to be able to score 30 plus in a game, and we're just not doing it.
Yeah, and I made a quote graphic a little bit earlier today, and the quote graphic was Bush Hamdan. It wasn't his full quote, but part of it is that we got to play a different way to win football games. And when he said that, I found it so funny. The full quote, though, said, I think the biggest thing from my end here in 2 years is we got to play a different way to win football games. We've got to put ourselves in position to take risks when we need to take risks and be smart when we need to play smart. Is figuring out that balance that's critical. So basically, UK's offense, it's been terrible, but he's like, we got to figure out a different way to win these games.
Yeah, it's tough to have that quote coming out when you've already played 4 games or whatever. Like it's a bad time for that. That like that's supposed to be the quotes in spring ball. Like those are not supposed to be trying to figure it out mid-season. Not that it's a panic button thing, but it's kind of alarming that we're saying, oh, we have to figure out a different way to do these things. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's just scary.
Yeah, and Mark Stoops has also been saying that this team isn't able to play from behind. And I'm thinking to myself, we're in year 13. We should not be able to be playing from behind, but we should be able to set the tone and, have the lead. If we go up 10 nothing like we did against Ole Miss, we should be able to win that game. Or if we go up 14 nothing against an opponent, we should be able to win those games instead of blowing, those leads and being terrible under Mark Stoops.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like the South Carolina game, for example, where you can start taking a lead and doing that and kind of set the tone. Obviously, the defense isn't going to be able to just step up and like be just 85 Bears or anything, but like the defense has been good enough to be able to win games. And I mean, giving up 21 is a tough call, but like you should be able to put up more than 21 with what we have. Like you
Yeah.
said, you're 13.
Hmm.
Like it's just ridiculous. It's the offense is just
Yeah.
struggling very, very bad.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about a little bit about Seth McGowan. Then we'll talk about the scoring problems. But Seth McGowan, he's been basically the only bright spot for Kentucky football's offense. He rushed for 112 yards on 19 carries versus South Carolina. He's gone back-to-back games with 100 plus yards, and right now he's on pace for 1,200 plus rushing yards this season. And it's incredible what he's doing. Basically, South Carolina will start to just stack the line because they knew that UK wasn't going to throw the ball because Cutter Boley was already rattled, had, three turnovers during that game with two interceptions and one fumble. And it's pretty easy to do that, like just stack the line. And, once you do that, UK isn't going anywhere because, Seth McGowan can only take us so far along with Dante Dow.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you're playing a team that is putting eight in the box. There's only so much Seth McGowan can do. There's only so much any running back in the country can do against that. So, yeah, like you said, he's been definitely the bright spot. So the tight ends and that game. I don't think did Josh Caddis even have a catch in this
I don't
game? I know
think,
Willie did. He had
yeah, Willie
the
Rodriguez.
good ones, but like
And
those have been like the bright spots.
yeah, and we should have scored on that possession, like scored a touchdown after Willie Rodriguez had that big reception, got us down to, I believe, into the red zone. I'm like, how do we not score a touchdown? Like, those are the big explosive plays that we need to eventually score a touchdown on a drive.
Yeah, no doubt. You gotta be able to punch one in there when you finally are able to break the ice and keep going, and you just gotta score.
Yeah,
Gotta be able to punch that in. But yeah, poor Seth McGowan. Like you said, once they realized we were not gonna be throwing the ball, like Cutter was rattled. There was this whole thing. We're not gonna be throwing it. They just stacked the box, and it was kind of over for the offense from that point. But yeah, Seth McGowan's played really, really good for us all year. And I feel like he's just gonna be one of those dudes that's well, obviously we can't project exactly how the season's going to go from this point, but I feel like it's going to be obviously a bad year, and
yeah.
I hope he's not one of those guys that just kind of gets forgotten because he's been special, and if he keeps it up, he's still going to have a really good year.
Yeah, and hopefully, people won't forget what Ray Davis did in his only season that he was here at UK. Of course, UK only went 7-6 that year, lost to Clemson in the bowl game. But hopefully people will remember Ray Davis like people will remember Seth McGowan being an all-time great running back at UK. And then now we're going to talk about, Kentucky still. Kentucky has been outscored 41 to 10 in third quarters this season, and that is completely unacceptable. Like you should not be getting outscored by that much in the third quarters through four games.
Yeah, no doubt. The third quarter, and just the middle eight, but the middle eight's been stupid bad part his entire career. So like it's not even necessarily a new thing, but losing the third quarter that bad, you're just never gonna you'll never compete in games if you're that bad in the third quarter. And yeah, I mean definitely this third quarter was bad. And then yeah, I mean overall it's been really bad in the third quarters where in the Ole Miss game and the South Carolina, there was at least a fighting chance and then it was just over.
I mean, well, I think we were down 28 to 10 at halftime against South Carolina, so the fighting chance was
Yeah.
really long gone after the, scoop and score and pick six.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that one was a bad example. But like, yeah, that one was over earlier than the third, but it's just been bad. Like the third quarter's just been horrible. That's like when Eastern Michigan mounted their little comeback, didn't they?
Uh,
Wasn't that just like all third and then we went into the fourth only up like
no,
a little bit?
that was actually like closer to the end of the second quarter with them.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was like I couldn't remember if it was like a little bit of both, but yeah, they had their little comeback there in those middle quarters, and it's been bad all
Yeah,
year.
I think it was like,
So
I,
need to be able to fix that if we want to have any chance.
yeah, I think it was like the final 5 minutes of the second quarter against Eastern Michigan because then I think UK only allowed one touchdown in the second half, which I thought was very impressive with UK's defense. I'm like, how do you play so bad in the first half, but then only allow one touchdown in that second half?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I do remember that where it was like, yeah, you gave up all of these points in the first half where we looked like we were just going to give up 50, and then they only gave up the one in the second half. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is correct. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then talking a little bit more about UK's defense, they have only forced one turnover in the last three games, and everybody thought it would be a little bit different after that Ole Miss game because we had two interceptions in that game, and everybody was like, "Wow, our defense is going to like take it to the next step." And sadly, that hasn't happened since that Ole Miss game where Ty Bryan got those two interceptions. I'm like, if we play like this, we could potentially get to 6 wins, but sadly, that doesn't look like it's going to happen because, our offense and defense they haven't been playing the best.
Yeah, when Ty got his like second pick, I was sitting there and I was like, this might be the most special defense we've had. We're gonna just be able to win games 10-7 all year. And like you said, win 6 games. That's where my thoughts were then. And then obviously Ole Miss kind of moved it a little bit more, put up what they put up 27 or 28 or whatever. Like they were able to end up scoring. But so it's not gonna be as special, but it's still a good defense.
Yeah, UK gave up 30 points against Ole Miss. It was 30 to 23. We lost by because we went for that field goal at the end and then that onside kick, and we didn't recover the ball. Of course, Ole Miss recovered it and then won that game. But like 30 to 23, I'm like that's still a little respectable because of how great Lane Kiffin's offense is usually traditionally every year.
Yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about because the whole they called the timeout, we kicked the field goal. It was just a whole thing there where people thought it was a little rigged, where we ended up covering.
Yeah, covering the spread, yeah. But continuing to talk about UK's defense still, UK, they gave up for LaNorris Sellers. He accounted for 312 total yards and 3 touchdowns, and that's insane. And so far, UK has given up 400 plus yards in 4 of 5 SEC games. And that is dating back since last year. And I'm thinking to myself, we're playing awful. We're allowing 400 plus yards in 4 or 5 SEC games. Like, that is completely unacceptable. And, Brad White has to figure this out on the defensive side.
Yeah, not even like necessarily the greatest SEC teams either, but yeah, Brad White's gonna have to do a little something, and it's tough for the defense to put a whole lot on them when they're on the field. Feels like 95% of the game, and they're just going out there after 3 and outs, and so it's tough to put it all on the defense. But they're gonna have to figure out something to
Yeah.
be able to pick that up.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so far, for the wider perspective, Kentucky is now 1-11 in their last 12 power conference games, and then of course the average margin of defeat in those 11 losses is 15.7 points. So I mean, we're keeping it somewhat close at least. Like, of course, we're losing basically a little bit more than 2 touchdowns and an extra point. Like, we're keeping it a little bit close, but I just wish we could be winning these games instead of losing.
Yeah, it's a bad little run, but yeah, I mean, I guess it could be worse where we've just it's just it feels like all the stats are just back to how it was when Stoops first got here, where it's just they're all bad. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and it's been ongoing. Like, people can say that it started back in, 2022 whenever UK went 7-6 and everything. I really don't think it started then. I think UK's downfall really started in 2023, basically during that Georgia game or after that Georgia football game, wherever Mark Stoops said it's time for y'all to pony up, and of course that did not sit well with UK fans at all.
Yeah, that was definitely the breaking point where it felt like everything has shifted since then. That's been the pivot point for the program, and yeah, the pony up comment hasn't aged well by any means.
Hey, you know what that means? We just got to pony up to get a better roster for next year for Mark Stoops to be here for his 14th year.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah. Hey, who all is aboard for the 14th year with Mark Stoops? Like anybody?
Dude, I don't think there's one out there at this point that's just like I don't even think it's part of like I don't think it's that everybody just wants him like I don't know. I think people like genuinely like him and like if he because of what he's done here, he's been the best coach we've had. So like I think if he comes back next year, it might get ugly with just like the relationship with the fan base. That's just kind of how it feels at this point because I don't think I've not seen one person kind of I've seen a lot of people turn to where they're on this side of it's got to be over.
Yeah, it's got to be over. And I really think the best thing, I know we'll soon talk about Georgia, but we're getting into this topic because right now, UK, they aren't looking great. They're 2-2 currently. And we just want, success again. We want to win games. We want to be competing against SEC opponents going to, not the greatest bowl games, but, okay, good bowl games, whether it be like the Music City Bowl, the Gator Bowl, Tax Slater, whatever it might be. Like, we just want to be competing. Like, of course, we all know that we're not going to be competing for the college football playoffs, but at least if we're going, like I feel like right now the bare minimum expectations that for UK football should be at least 7 wins before a bowl football game.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Josh Pate said last week with I think it was Colin Coward that he was on there with. Like he said, Mark Stoops has the best job in the country, and it's
Yeah.
because of what you said, where you can go 7-5 and you will be perfectly fine,
Mhm.
no hot seat, nothing. As long as those 7-5 are very respectable and you're in the games where you're not just getting killed and you win seven just because of the schedule. Where that's what Stoops' career was,
Mhm.
especially from 2021 to 2015. It was every year we knew we were going to a bowl game. We
Yeah.
knew like we had these expectations, but they were realistic. Like they weren't
Mhm.
nobody was thinking like playoff. Obviously there were some crazy fans where like the
Yeah.
certain teams they'd go ahead and buy SEC championship tickets
Yeah.
to the game and stuff. So like there's been some, but overall this fan base is very realistic. We just want to be able to compete. Where right now we're not competing and we're
Yeah.
not putting up points where if you lose a game like if you go back to Hal Mumme, they weren't winning 10 games a year
Mhm.
every year. Like it wasn't that, but they were putting up 40 in a loss.
Yeah.
Where you at least have a fighting chance. Where like I've heard somebody put it this way. If you talk about Penn State this past weekend, they lose. If their offense is better, you can talk yourself into them still being a title contender way more than you could right now, where
Yeah.
it's defense. Where you're with if you have defense, you're kind of a team puts up 21 games over. Like you're not going to be able to compete. So
Yeah.
we just need the refresh of like getting an offense in where
Mhm.
we can actually, if we are going to go 4-8, put up 40 a game. I mean, that's what Arkansas has been dealing with, like with
Yeah.
Bobby P there. Like you just got to put up points. You got to be fun at least.
Yeah.
That's kind of the expectations.
And Pittman has, of course, been fired from Arkansas, so that'll be interesting. And who knows, maybe, UK does the same thing as what, Arkansas did with Sam Pittman, like give him, I think it was like 60% of his contract, remaining of his contract. Did I lose Cameron?
Yeah, I don't remember what it exactly was, but uh no, and we have I you did cut out right there, so I did lose you for a second, but I
Yeah.
pieced it together. I don't know what his contract ended up being. I don't think it was anything like super crazy. But do you remember my Rhett Lashley take? That was last week before the firing. Still going with it. I think it's gonna be Rhett Lashley at Arkansas.
SMU. Did he hear me?
Yep. Yep. SMU. They made the playoff last year. Arkansas is gonna see that and then get the up and coming guy.
Yeah, they've been struggling though so
Yeah,
far.
I think you're cutting out.
Yeah.
I keep
Yeah,
losing you.
we're having some Wi-Fi issues. I know I've noticed that throughout the podcast, but we've been able to make it work at least a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully it'll end up fading. We haven't had Wi-Fi issues in a while,
I know.
but that was an early staple of the podcast where every episode we had Wi-Fi issues, it felt like.
Yeah, it felt like I feel like it's been improving since the 20 Beckham podcast, but yeah, for the first time in a while we've had a little bit of Wi-Fi issues. I don't know what that is, but just still talking about the struggling with UK football and like you were saying from 2015 through 2021, like UK was going to bowl games basically every year. We were staying competitive for the most part against most of the SEC teams and like I really don't think UK fans' expectations are too high. Like, of course, probably most fans were a little high on 2022 because, we were all expecting to go at least, I was expecting at least, go 9-3 with our three losses being to, I think it was that year, South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, I believe. Out. Everybody had high expectations because of what happened the year before, where UK went 10-3. Of course, they beat, who was it, Iowa in the Citrus Bowl with Will Levis and Wandale Robson. So everybody had high expectations going to that 2022 season. Of course, we just fell short. We went 7-6. Rich Scanjarello got fired. And of course, the following year, we got Liam Cohen back, but of course, he left after 1 year too.
Yeah, another dude from that era that I think is just going to be forgotten, sadly, that I really liked, and who was also a part of why people bought into the 2022 team so much was Tavion Robinson. Like I think that dude was
Virginia Tech.
solid. Like he was so good, and yeah, I just feel like yeah, I think it ended up just not panning out fully. I mean, like that Will's second year, we had that was like the worst O line we've had. That was just a whole mix of things. But Tavion's one of those dudes I want people to be able to kind of cling on to us. He was like that team like three. He was kind of the consistent guy, but I always loved him though.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be the mentor for Barryon Brown and Danke because they were only true freshmen at that time. And then, of course, I believe for him, he was a redshirt junior that year because I think he played in the 2023 season as well. So, I thought he was going to be a great mentor for, Brown and Key, but, of course, that didn't happen. Maybe he was a great mentor, but of course, just UK's offense was terrible under Scangarello.
Uh, which is crazy because Will obviously we don't know what he'll end up being as his like full NFL career, but like he still ended up being fine. Like if you're even a fine NFL quarterback, you can make it in college. So it's impressive that Rich was able to make an offense look bad with what we had on that squad for sure.
Yeah, and then of course it caused Will Levis to slip into the second round, which should have never happened. Of course, the Titans, they've been struggling with Cam Ward. They're 0-4, I believe, at this point in the season. So, of course, people were trying to blame Will Levis for how terrible the offense was with the Titans. But I'm like, it's not him. It's just this terrible offensive line and why receivers can't get open right now for these quarterbacks.
Yeah, Cam Ward really hasn't had the best start. He had a funny quote this weekend, kind of referring to that, but he hasn't looked that good either. Like he's obviously had a few throws here and there that have looked the part, and but overall he hasn't looked good. So it's been kind of funny for like seeing people kind of turn back on Will Levis, where they're like, you know what, maybe he wasn't the problem this whole time because they just got their number one pick and he's not
Yeah,
looked great
well,
either.
I remember, and then we'll start to talk about Georgia, but I just remember watching, like a couple of years ago, I was trying to watch every Bengals game plus the Titans play because, I was a big fan of Will Levis and, his first career start, he had 4 touchdowns, I'm like, wow, he's going to be like the next big thing. Like he's going to become like maybe like the next Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, whoever it might be, Drew Brees, like he's going to be the next big time quarterback. But basically, after his rookie debut, he wasn't the best after that. And it was because his offensive line was awful. Like, I watched every game, I'm like, he's just getting, drilled every play, it feels like. Same with Joe Burrow with the Bengals. Like, you just need to protect your quarterback, protect your prize possession if you want to be great in the league.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that Levis has a like second team bump where he ends up just being special somewhere else where it's somebody with a good front office, good offensive line in front of him, and a couple weapons out there that he can throw it to. Similar to like what I know Daniel Jones, I think, was maybe with Minnesota last year or something. But like is really a second team where he's
Yeah.
got a big time bump. And
Sam Darnold.
I think I'm hoping he can be one of those because he deserves it. Will deserves it.
Yeah, Sam Darnold though,
Who'd you say?
he's been pretty impressive with the Vikings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean now he's with Seattle, but yeah, he had that crazy year last year.
Yeah, yeah, I just think Will Levis he hasn't been the best of course, and it's because just a terrible offensive line, and I believe what my favorite team where I would love for him to go to, like in my honest opinion. Do you want to hear my favorite team real quick, Cameron, and then we'll talk about Georgia?
Now I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. Your favorite team that you'd like to see him go to
Yeah.
would be. I'm trying to think of just like a fun team that would fit him. I don't know. I don't know who you going with.
Other than the Bengals, of course, with Joe Burrow being out, like yeah, let's get Will Levis there, but of course he's out for the whole season with his shoulder surgery that he had to do. But no, I've been saying for the longest of time, I would love for him to go to the Miami Dolphins. Like I feel like he will be the perfect replacement for Tua Tagovailoa whenever he gets injured or hurt, or if he, eventually retires. Of course, now Tyreek Hill is out for the season because of what happened to him, but like I felt like that would have been the perfect place for him to go. Like every time Tua Tagovailoa got injured, I'm like, trade for Will Levis. He's right there. Like I feel like he could have made the team great.
They crossed my mind, but I didn't know if that was going to be who you're going with. I would like to see that. That would be fun.
Yeah, of course, everything hasn't changed. The Dolphins head coach, he'll probably get fired after this year. Tyreek Hill, he may never be the same after his injury. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Dolphins, though.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun if they could get Will down there. That'd be a
Yeah.
little fun matchup.
Yeah, for sure. But getting off of topic right now, let's get back onto topic on what we're talking about. I mean, we've been talking about Kentucky sports, been talking about former athletes, but now let's get into the big matchup this upcoming Saturday. Of course, it's against Georgia. It's at noon at Athens. UK, they are 20.5 point underdogs, so it's not great right now for UK currently. And right now, Georgia is averaging 34 points per game, and that's a lot. I'm like, how will UK's offense keep up with that? Because we're only averaging like, you know, I don't know how many points we've been averaging through. I think we've been averaging with the two SEC opponents like 19 points per game. So how are we going to keep up with their 34 points per game while we've been averaging like 19 points per game in the SEC?
Yeah, that's a whole lot of points, and they're weird because they don't play like the style that you would think that puts up like 30 something. Like with Bobo there, they screen teams to death. They break runs to get a lot of big gains. They'll go deep to Kobe Young. I think that was a sluggo that he ran this week to get open deep. So like they'll have some shots, but it's really they just slowly beat you down, and that's kind of how it goes. And I mean the way that Tennessee's defense looked against Mississippi State, obviously they gave up a lot of points, but Tennessee's defense, their pass rush was able to work pretty well against Tennessee when they played. Now, I mean, dude, Georgia shut down Tennessee defensively. Our defense is gonna have a tough day.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a tough day because this is a weird little combination here because like they run a committee of running backs. They run four backs legitimately, and all four kind of have different threats with them. So it's going to be a handful for Brad White and company.
Yeah, it'll be a handful. And so far, UK defense, they are giving up 29.6 points per game versus SEC opponents. And right now, Brad White is having a great season with his defense because if you're giving up nearly 30 points per game against SEC opponents, granted, it's only been 2 games, but it's still not a great look for the defense.
Yeah, that's not a good look at all. So we'll see what can happen with this one. But it's always so weird because we do compete with Georgia like every time we play them. It feels like so. We'll see what happens. It's obviously a lot of points, and I think there might be some of the public that ends up taking us, so that line could move down to 17 and a half, 18 and a half when it's all said and done and we kick off on Saturday. But we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, if it moves down to probably 17.5 points, I would probably still, go with the Georgia point spread. But it'll be interesting to see because for Kentucky, they have lost to Georgia, of course, by an average of 21 points in the last 5 meetings. And, like 21 points, of course, we had that big blowout loss in 2023. But, like if you're looking at the odds, 20.5 points, you might go with Georgia to cover the spread because it's 21 points the UK has lost by in the last 5 meetings by an average of that.
Yeah, the one that is kind of crazy. I didn't realize it was that big because it feels like it's been closer. It was we lost 16-6 back in 2022, and then last year's 13-12. So like those were very, very close. I know obviously the blowout separated a good amount, but we fought with them, man. Like that one was weird because the public kind of hopped on Kentucky at that point in 2023 where they were like, oh, not saying Georgia's an upset watch, but like watch out. Kentucky might go down there.
Yeah,
We didn't need any of that. Georgia just got fired up and had some bulletin board material. So that one kind of sucked for us. But the other ones have been close recently. The
yeah,
2022 and 2024 when we've had them at home. But we'll
yeah.
see what we can do this weekend.
Well, I think what did it, and also too was it was the night game at Athens. You can never go wrong with a night game wherever you play at. And I think that's one of the reasons why UK kept the game so close against Georgia last year because it was a night game at our field and everything. And maybe we would have won that game if they actually counted that as a pick six with Zion Childress. I'm like, man, we got robbed.
Yeah, that pick six would have gone down in history. Like if we would have finally had that one, and that also would have just been the weirdest team of all time because we would have been 5-7 with two wins over like playoff teams essentially. So that would have been wild. But I wish that one would have counted. But yeah, that is a good point on playing them at night last year.
Yeah, and of course, usually if the games are earlier, UK usually keeps it competitive, whether it be like losing 20-6, at least they only lose by two touchdowns or something. But yeah, the last time Kentucky has ever defeated Georgia, and it was at Athens, was back in 2009. So basically, Georgia, they are on a mean winning streak right now, winning 15 games in a row against UK, and basically UK has to figure it out. Of course, I don't think it'll be this year just because of how much we've been struggling through the first four games of the year. But I want that streak to end like UK finally ended the streak against Florida with that 31-year losing streak against them, and hopefully it'll happen eventually sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully this one doesn't get to that point. But uh, yeah, I mean this year it's probably not going to happen. But
Yeah.
we'll still go down there and fight a little bit. And we'll see what we can do. But um,
Mhm.
yeah, even the 2021 game down there, the score didn't show what that game actually was because that one I don't remember who it was. There was like a fumble that ended up somebody didn't jump on. Like there was like a few different
Yeah.
things that happened in that one where the score looked a lot worse than it was. Like we were in that game. Obviously, that team was much better than what
Mhm.
this Kentucky team is. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Going noon game in Athens. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it was 30-13 that year, and of course, like you said, UK kept it close. And I know a lot of Georgia fans were upset with Kentucky because they decided to score a touchdown at the very end. And I think like at that time, I don't know if Georgia allowed, any other SEC team to score another touchdown, but I think at that time, UK was like the only team to either to score a touchdown in the second half or to have two offensive touchdowns during a game against them at that time.
Yeah, I do remember that they got pretty ticked about that last touchdown, but that game, like I did not care about that. Like that last touchdown, I was like, dude, this game, like you all did not beat us like 30-7 or whatever. Like that one, we deserved that one because that one was just crazy. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can compete in the game like that because that one I think was that one a 3:30 game maybe
Yeah,
or like
it
it
was
might have
like
been a
an
1:30
afternoon game.
somewhere earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think UK could have had a chance to win if they recovered the ball that Georgia recovered because they ruled it a forward pass. I think that game could have ended a little bit differently, like maybe the score being a little bit closer, like 27-20 instead of like 30-13.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. That one was just weird. That one, I wish we could have got that one. I was with a friend during that one, and I was like, dude, like we were right there the whole time, and then yeah, once it was getting toward the end, it was kind of like, man, this one's gonna look like it was a blowout, but it certainly wasn't. So hopefully that's what this year is, where we're right there with the fighting chance in this one.
Yep. And the last time UK actually defeated Georgia at home at Kroger Field, of course, it won't matter this year, but potentially next year was back in 2006. UK was able to defeat Georgia 24-20 at home back whenever it was called Commonwealth Stadium. So, hopefully that happens next year at home, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, we gotta break that streak. We can't let another one get up to like 31. That's
Yeah.
absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on since basically the last time we were able to defeat Georgia. I was 10 years old. I really probably don't even remember that.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I do not remember that, but like it's been a while. We've obviously had a couple close ones, and last year would have been a fun one to end up breaking it. But maybe this year, we'll see.
Yeah, so just talking about a little bit about Georgia, they've had so many turnovers over the years. They've had 55 players drafted over the past 5 years, and basically, I think that's also adding up. And then, of course, injury issues. and the Georgia Bulldogs, they have started four different offensive line combinations just this year. So right now with the new combinations, I mean that could play a factor because of course UK has David Gusta and then McQueese Grace Humphreys. Like with those two big defensive line, like maybe they can finally get to the quarterback, get to Gunnar Stockton, cause him to get sacked or tackle for losses or fumbles or interceptions potentially.
Yeah, that would be nice. We're gonna apply some pressure, but yeah, like I said, even the Georgia against Tennessee, you would think Tennessee had no pass rush, but then Tennessee goes to Mississippi State and looks like they're just playing Pro Bowlers on the line. So we'll see. Their offensive line looked good. It looked good against Alabama for the most part too. So we'll see. Obviously, it's a rare occasion where we do get Georgia off of a loss, so that's going to be a little extra motivation for them. Where they also just don't want to lose at home. They just had their home win streak snapped, and but they're coming off a loss, so they'll be fired up against us.
Yeah, they'll definitely be fired up. And the Georgia defense has just 5 sacks, ranking number 121 in the FBS. And honestly, like that's pretty crazy to think about that the Georgia defense only has 5 sacks so far this year. Like they aren't really getting to the quarterback at all.
Yeah, I think they'll end up having a few of these defensive guys probably end up going to the Eagles, but they'll end up being good NFL players nonetheless. But yeah, they don't necessarily have the crazy players that they've had the last few years on the edge. But hopefully, we don't see one emerge this week because that would end up very very bad for Cutter Boley or whoever ends up playing in this one.
It definitely would. And then just talking a little bit about the quarterback for Georgia, Gunnar Stockton. He's 6'1", and so far he's completed just shy of 70% of his passes on 7.8 yards per attempt, and he hasn't even thrown an interception. So hopefully, UK can break that streak. Finally, can get that interception against Georgia against Stockton, and that'll be great. But like. Brad White, he has that same bend don't break, and Georgia's offense they're averaging 7.8 yards per attempt for his throws. I'm like, we have that motto. I'm like, are we going to allow him to pass more than like 8 yards per attempt he's throwing against us?
Yeah, I would like to definitely break that streak of Stockton. He hasn't necessarily thrown a lot of risky balls by any means, but he had a couple. I mean, the Tennessee game, Bama game that were a little risky, but like obviously in those games you're gonna have to make some risky plays. So hopefully we can break that streak and pick him off for the first time this year because he's looked good. He's looked a lot better than I think a lot of people expected going into the year.
Yeah.
He's been a great replacement for Beck.
Yeah, and you could also say he's a dual threat quarterback because he's carried the ball for 29 times for 132 yards, which is 4.5 yards per carry, which is pretty impressive for, a quarterback that most people thought he's just going to stand in the pocket and throw, but he's actually also going out of the pocket and running the ball if he has to for Georgia.
Yeah, he ended up at Georgia, kind of taking. I know it's a touchy name, but taking what Brock Vandegrift did, where they had packages where Vandegrift would come in back before he transferred to Kentucky, where he'd come in and just run the ball and run a little kind of wildcat, where they would just he'd go in and there was nothing he was doing but running, and so they did that last year a little bit
Mhm.
with him. But yeah, Gunnar Stockton's got legs for sure, and he's not scared to run somebody over either. He's not the type that's just going to step out of bounds or slide. Like he'll run through somebody, and they have a good backup if anything was to happen. So,
Mhm.
yeah, he's gonna be a special talent. He's been pretty good so far this year.
Yeah, like you said, he took over that Brock Vandegrift role last year before, of course, Brock came to UK.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And then we have to talk about the wide receiver room. I think the biggest player that they got from the transfer portal was USC transfer Zachariah Branch. So far this season, he's got 14 receptions for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's just been insane for Georgia this year. And basically, if you're probably going to bet his over under for his reception yards, I would go with the over through, the 4 games Georgia has played so far this year.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done it against good teams too. He didn't have the best game against Bama, but I know he had the huge play in the Tennessee game where, like I said, Mike Bobo They're just going to run screen after screen after screen. I think he caught a bubble on that one and just broke it for like 40 or whatever it was. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be the one. And then the other is Kobe Young, the one I brought up earlier. With he ran the slogo that got him open late in the Bama game, but he's been there 2 years now and been with Bobo. So, yeah, that's kind of their big two receiver wise. London Humphries is the one that caught the big play at the end of the Tennessee game, so we'll have to watch out. Great route runner, and he's got that chemistry. Like Kobe Young and London Humphries have the chemistry with Gunner.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about the two other wide receivers that yeah, for Branch, I mean, they've been getting him involved in the run game. And not only that, he's also not just doing offense, but he's also on special teams. He's been doing very well with that. He's been their top returner whenever that happens with, kick returns and punt returns. So, of course, you'll have to watch him whenever he does that during special teams because, UK could potentially be punting the ball a lot this game.
Yeah, and probably a lot of Kentucky fans do know Branch's name just because of when we had Barry on. There was a lot of Kentucky fans that would argue that it's like that Barry on was the most like dynamic
Yeah.
and electric playmaker and all that. So they probably know his name a little bit, but we'll get to know him big time. So yeah, and his brother's there. Like they got the package duo. His brother's not as good. He's on the other side of the ball, but yeah, he's gonna be one to watch for sure. Zachariah.
Yeah, and then now we'll talk about Kobe Young for sure. 6'3", very talented. Right now he has a team high of 17 receptions for 238 yards, and he only has one touchdown so far this year. But you don't need a wide receiver to be scoring a lot of touchdowns. Like just be able to move the ball down the field, and then if you have to, just run the ball. But Kobe Young has been very explosive. He's definitely been showing out for Georgia, and of course leading the receptions for this year's team for Georgia.
Yeah, and like I said, like he was the one that ended up breaking the play late against Bama, and he's just been very consistent for him. Like they have been notorious for just not really opening up the playbook a whole lot until they get into like real games. So it was hard to kind of judge him off of I think they played Marshall and maybe Austin P or something, but uh, yeah, he's just been very consistent for them, and a guy that they were definitely excited to get back. So yeah, he'll be the other one where. If it's not Zach Branch, it's probably gonna be Colby Young that they're trying to get the ball to in space.
And if it's not him, it's London Humphreys.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. That's the trio right there.
Yeah, and then of course London Humphreys, he transferred from Vanderbilt to Georgia, and like you were saying earlier, he was like the main reason why the game went to overtime against Tennessee earlier this year, where he caught a 28-yard touchdown on a 4th and 6, and that caused the game to go into overtime where Georgia was able to eventually defeat Tennessee, and that game was crazy. I remember just watching that game at my girlfriend's friend's wedding, like watching it during like not it was like after the wedding, right before the reception started, so I was trying to keep up with it. And I just couldn't believe that Tennessee, lost at home against Georgia. Of course, I know Georgia is a tough team, but Tennessee is also pretty great as well.
Yeah, I know. I was happy. I was a big Georgia fan that day. I was screaming "sick 'em dogs" in that one. But yeah,
Oh,
London Humphrey is definitely the one to watch out for. And then uh, Oscar Delp, I'm sure you've got him on there like to talk about and highlight because he when Bowers left, he was kind of the one where I'm very close to some massive Georgia fans that live in Georgia, and the way that they talked about Oscar Delp, you would think they had Brock Bowers coming again, where there was just another behind him. So he's obviously not been. He's
yeah.
not been Mackey Award winner or anything, but he's been good when he's got the ball. He's a special player, and yeah, he's only got 3 catches this year, but he uh he can make things happen for sure. He's a bruiser, great blocking tight end, and just a guy that you'll see on the field a whole lot. Number 4.
Yeah, I remember just hearing so much about him last year and the year before 24 and 23 season. But like you were saying, he's only got 3 receptions for 51 yards. But I mean, the year before he had 21 receptions for 248 yards, and then in 2023 he had 24 receptions for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns. And you're not really hearing too much about Oscar Delp this year, which is a surprise because he's a senior this year tight end, and of course he saw how well Georgia was with Brock Bowers at tight end as well.
Yeah, he's just a big dude, though. He's going to be one of those guys that we'll just see on the field, just a big frame, and then, like I said, they do they have a lot of running backs. Like I said, they're a running back committee, but they do throw the ball to Cash Jones, and that was, I mean, they leaned on Cash Jones there on that 4th and 1 against Alabama last week, and they uh they trust in Cash Jones to be the guy to get them that first down where it ended up he got tripped up and they ended up turning it over. But Cash Jones will be a guy out of the backfield to watch out for.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you have anything else you want to add about the good old Georgia versus Kentucky game? Like preview, of course, we'll get into score predictions and, like, who will win between the two. But of course, it's going to be pretty obvious Georgia will win, but we'll see about score predictions as well.
Now I don't have any more to say. Yeah, we can move on to score predictions. If anything hits me, and I'll jump in
Yeah.
and say it. But I think that's about it.
Yeah, it's been great. We've covered definitely a lot of the podcast, but yeah, let's get into score predictions. So I believe UK will be able to cover the spread as long as it stays at 20.5. But I do think UK will struggle again to score against Georgia. And I think Georgia will struggle a little bit to score as well. But it won't be too bad. But I will go with 27-10 Georgia. UK covers the spread, but of course loses, and then they go on to 2-3 in the year.
Yeah, I'll be going 31-13. I think that we'll end up scoring maybe an early touchdown again. Maybe it's another Seth McGowan. We just go down on our first drive. But and then I think we'll end up getting field goal range a couple times, whether it's on big plays, like you said, you brought up the Willie play against South Carolina, where it got us a big chunk play and big shot play. So I think we'll be able to move it a little bit, but obviously I have them winning. But I do have us covering. So that's the bright spot in that. So I have us losing by 18 in that one. So 31-13 will be my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, we were both off last week with our score prediction and, covering. We both thought UK was going to cover, but of course that didn't happen. South Carolina just covered easily. So, hopefully we're both right that we'll cover, and hopefully UK does win, but I don't think it will happen though.
Yeah, it'd be certainly the most shocking thing of the Stoops era if we were to pull this one off, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, a person who is a UK media member did say that they felt like UK was going to lose to Toledo, but then upset Georgia. I won't say who it was, but that person got a lot of like backlash for that.
Who was it? I kind of want to know.
It was just one of the UK student writers. They're still in school, but they got a little backlash on the other podcasts I join for the most part every Sunday with Round of Shots.
Yeah, that's a bold take. We said the Toledo and beating
Yeah.
Georgia. Yeah, they might go over 2 on that one, sadly.
Overdue, yeah. We'll definitely see what happens. Hopefully, though, UK does the impossible and we'll be able to defeat Georgia.
That would be amazing. Like I said, that would probably be obviously the Louisville game will always stand out the 2016 one, but like it's a rivalry. We know some crazy things can happen in those. This would be I think the most shocking thing of the
Yeah.
Stoops era if we were able to
Yeah.
pull this one off.
Yeah, I think it definitely will be the most shocking if they pull it off. But like I said, I think UK scores a little bit, but of course Georgia prevails at the end. But that's all we have for this week's podcast. We're planning on having a guest next week. It's not anybody UK related, so it's not like a former Kentucky basketball football player next week. But we're going to hopefully have somebody on the show next week, and we're going to get ready for basketball season because next week we've got pro day. It'll be exciting. I'm potentially going to that. If not, I'll definitely watch it on television, and we'll definitely be talking about that next week.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. We're right here. October, basketball is back, and I'm excited about it.
Woo, let's go. Basketball season is back.
Yeah,
But
we
that's all
back.
that's all we have for this week's episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron. Of course, we always enjoy you all watching on YouTube and of course listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we're going to continue to come out with episodes every week. And like we'll try to of course do 2 episodes a week. We'll probably definitely do that during basketball season just because they play 2 games a week, Tuesday. and Saturday. So we'll definitely try to get at least, 2 episodes a week during basketball season. But I'm excited for that. Hopefully, football can prevail and we can actually win an SEC game this year.
Yeah, hopefully so. So something's gonna have to budge, whether we win some games or Stoops somehow ain't the coach here. I don't know. Something's gonna have to change though. But it would be super exciting if we could start it off and win a shocking game this week.
Yeah, that would be definitely shocking. But yeah, thank you all for again for watching and listening. And of course, hopefully next week we'll have better Wi-Fi because I know we've had Wi-Fi issues throughout this podcast. So hopefully it'll be better next week, though.
Yeah, hopefully so. Like you said, it had been a while. We hadn't had Wi-Fi issues in a minute, so
Yeah,
I guess it was due. We were due for it. So
yeah,
this one was a little choppy, but hopefully it'll go better in the future.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, thank you all for watching and listening. But this is Chris Beatmore and
And Cameron Waddle.
signing out. Have a great night and great week, everybody, and go Cats.